Welcome, welcome, welcome to this emergency live stream. I kept the background the same as my last live stream on Sunday, but I decided to have an emergency live stream because the information that I gave you Sunday, it was kind of correct, but not totally correct. And I'm going to explain why. And actually, shout out. I'm not going to be making up excuses here. Like I've always told everybody at Retired Life in Mexico No Bull, we believe in giving you accurate information. If I give you the wrong information and I'm corrected or I stand corrected, I'm here to correct that information because I need to get the most accurate information. Like I said on this YouTube channel, I don't apologize for anything that I do. I don't apologize for the information I put out. But if it's wrong, I make sure I correct it. I'm man enough to say that I was wrong or the information was incorrect or maybe I got it from a wrong source. I'll explain exactly what's going on because basically that's part of my noble in my channel. And that's why I like to tell everybody that I like to give the most accurate information possible. I'm not here for a popularity contest. I'm not here to make money. This is not my business. So I can afford to, unlike other YouTubers that might put out some wrong information and refuse to say that they're wrong because God forbid it'll ruin their reputation. Well, you know what? If it ruins my reputation, it ruins my reputation, but my reputation stands that I give you accurate information. Now, I want to go into something part of the information I gave, actually the information I gave was kind of correct, but my opinions were I got a little bit opinionated. And not only that, but it wasn't totally correct. And I fell into something, and this is the reason I want this to kind of be a lesson to the community also, not just for me, because usually I'm pretty good at, like I told you at the very beginning of the live stream, I said, you know what? I usually like to make sure when I get information, I either research it, check over the legalities. Not only that, but I wait to see that things start happening before maybe I'm late to the party a lot of times with some of the news. Sometimes I'm late to the party so that I can correct some of the misconceptions that are out there. But this time I kind of jumped the gun. I didn't take my own advice. And I always give advice is to do your research. Make sure that the information is factual. Actually, some people were good enough to do the research or ask questions to the right people. And I want to shout out to Mexico Relocation Guide because she got a hold of me right away and said, Ernie, I think you're a little bit wrong here. And you know what? I really appreciate that. And because she knows my reputation, she didn't want this information to come out and be incorrect, just as much as she's always supported me and supported my channel, and I always support her business. Like I said, it's one of the few expat service businesses or relocation services that I actually put my name behind. I say that I put my name behind that business because I believe in it, not because she's paying me, not because I have a sponsorship, not because I make money off of referral fees, none of that stuff. I refer her because, and yes, her guide, some people have disagreed that it's a little bit expensive, but it's not expensive in my book, especially for the information that's contained in it. But let me explain to you just a little bit about what happened and the mistakes that I made. And also the other thing that I wanted to point out is the second part, there was two parts. I actually took down the last live so nobody would get confused. Because if they watch the last live and don't watch this live, but let me give a little bit of a background. I got word that the UMA formula the UMA economic indicator was going to be used. I actually explained how the UMA works instead of the minimum wage. And so I got all excited because for years I've been waiting for this to happen. This has been a rumor for several years. As a matter of fact, I even mentioned that immigration went to the UMA as in the formula for calculating financial solvency. But then I said, it's a catch-22 because you got to get past the consulate, right? And that was the biggest problem, because even though immigration changes, if you go to an immigration office, they'll tell you it's like $1,800 a month. And then you go to the consulate and it's like $4,500, $4,600. It varies. And I explain why. Usually it's because of the consulate having total discretion. Okay. And the discretion part still goes. But what I had got so excited that I used a formula that's being used right now with the minimum wage. And I sat down and I told you 500 times and this and that. Oh my God, it's going to go down to $1,800. What I didn't do, which I went against my own advice and telling people, make sure you research. I didn't read the full Diario Oficial. I just took the word that they're going to the UMA. And what I didn't read was the fine print, not fine print, but the section where it defines a new formula. Okay. So that doesn't mean it's no longer 500 times UMA, it's 680 times UMA. And then it's for savings, it's not 10,000, I believe it was. It's now 11,060. So what SRE did, they kind of threw a wrench in the whole thing. First, let me explain. The reason why they did this is they want to make it uniform. The government of Mexico is getting uniform. Usually, as a matter of fact, Kuru Paul coined this phrase, Mexico's is consistent about being inconsistent. Okay. And that's what happens, because you go to one office, it's done one way. The other office is done another way. Same thing with the consulates. You go one consulate, it's 4,500. You go to another consulate, it's 3,500. And there's no uniformity. So what the Mexican government has been trying to do, and they have been trying to do this since the last president. I'm going to tell you right now, even in the immigration system, they reformed the whole computer systems and everything else. They're trying to become more uniformed in their processes. Does that mean that things are going to become consistent here? Not necessarily. Okay. So what happened was SRE probably gave in and said, or the exterior relations, SRE is what Secretaria de Relaciones Exteriores, the equivalent to the State Department. The SRE, because the last president, I'm almost sure this president, has been very, very adamant about utilizing the UMA. And probably the last ones to utilize the UMA, and I don't know this for a fact, was the consulates. Okay. In 2016, the president, back in 2016, actually issued an order that every agency must go to the UMA for whatever reason, because I say the consulates have full discretion they created a formula. SRE created a formula, but based on the minimum wage, and which they have the total right to do. Okay. What SRE probably did, I can't tell you because I don't have any firsthand knowledge, but what SRE did was said, oh, okay, we'll go to the UMA. Not a problem. But we're not going to use the same old formula. We're going to use a new formula. Instead of 300 days, actually for temporary residencies, it's 300 times the minimum wage. Now it's 680. So remember how I said it kind of got cut in half? Well, what they did was they changed the formula to kind of keep it the same. Now, so what's really happening here at the consulates, to be honest with you, is that the formula is changing and the amount is not changing much. So the amounts are going to be high. But there are some advantages to this. Actually, I'm going to pull up a blog post from Mexico Relocation Guide, because I was sitting there putting this together today, and by the grace of God, I received her blog post announcement. I went to it and I said, what better blog post to explain the whole thing? Okay. So she went into, now this blog post said 2026. The order is to do it right this year. I don't know if, from what I understand, but we don't know when it's actually going to get implemented. Now, I do know this blog post is about 2026 because sometimes it takes them that long to implement something like that. This now it could be in 2020. No, actually, this blog post talks about 2025, but it says in 10 days. But it says that we don't know when it's going to happen. That's what it also states in this blog post, and I'm going to put a link to it in the video description. But it is on, if you go to Mexico, if you search on Google Mexico Relocation Guide blog, you'll see a blog post for residency requirements have changed. But basically, what has happened, there are some benefits to this. I'm going to pull it up right now. We're going to go here right now. Okay. Right here is the UMA-based solvency formulas. Okay, this is for temporary residency, 680 times UMA, and the UMA is 113 and change, I forgot. In 2025, that's 4,092. Now, here's one good thing. It's going down because if you look at the formula the way it is now, it's at about $4,500 or $4,600 given the exchange rate. This number right here, the 4,092 could vary this year from consulate to consulate. It usually varies by a couple of $100. Why? Because of the exchange rates. Why? Because maybe one consulate is still using the minimum wage and refuses to change. Maybe another consulate decides to depart and go lower because we've seen that. The savings is going to be $11,460 UMA times the UMA, which is about 68,000. Right now, you need around, I think it is 75,000. So the numbers are going to go down. And and then if you have a family member, this is if you are actually adding them onto your, like, let's say you're going to get a visa, you want a visa for your spouse, and you want a visa for your child. It's 220 times UMA additional to the 4,000 times the daily UMA, and in 20, that's about $1,300 per person. Now, I have mentioned, and everybody has mentioned, you can, like, for example, let's say you barely meet the 4,092. One of you can get the residency, and then when you get to Mexico, you can actually ask under family unity. So that's still an option. This is if you just want to do it all up front, the additional family members. If you have now permanent residency is going to be 1,140 times the UMA, daily UMA. In 2025, that's about 6,896. I believe Mariana was being conservative. I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the messages we went back and forth, I think she said it's 17-1. You can do the math, but this is about 6,896, what you would need for financial solvency. Plus, instead of, and that was 500 times UMA. Do you see what they did? They doubled the multiplier, or more than doubled. Actually, it's more than doubled. So they could come out to a figure that is more or less what it is now. So really what they did was they said, okay, we'll use the UMA. We'll conform with the government orders. Not government, but we'll confirm with the president's orders of 2016 finally in 2025, 11 years later. But we're going to change the formula. And they have the total right to do that. So basically, this is what you're looking at right here. Here's a table. Now, what are the benefits? And actually, Mariana talks about this, and I actually see there are benefits in this. What are the actual benefits in this? The problem that happened with the minimum wage is that, for example, next year, the actual president wants to increase the minimum wage. I forgot by how much. There were we're seeing a 20%, 12%. I think next year the proposed was 12%. I think this year, I don't remember what the minimum wage raise was. the last presidency and this particular presidency is very big on raising the minimum wage. They're saying, and actually someone made a comment on my live. I was trying to say it was the financial solvency requirement. They were like, what? You said the minimum wage is high? Because I think I also made a comment that most people don't make the minimum wage, they make more. If you have someone come to clean your house, you're not going to get them to come clean your house for the day for 278 pesos here in San Miguel. I don't know, maybe in other places in Mexico. But that's not a fair wage for even a housekeeper or a gardener. So even basic services, waiters get paid sort of like they do in the United States on tips. So basically, that is low. So what the government is trying to do is come up on that minimum wage. So what's happening? What I've seen in 7 years is the financial solvency requirements go from $1,300, I think it was when I was applying, all the way up to $4,500 in 5 years. It was $1,500 probably 5 years ago. So we've seen those financial solvency requirements like basically exponentially. Like if we had a 12% increase in the minimum wage next year, you're looking at $5,500 or over $5,000, if that makes sense to everybody. Now, if you use the UMA is a more accurate not financial, but an economic indicator. So the UMA doesn't move up 12 or 15 or 25% or 20%. It's literally been very large increases. The UMA formula, if you look at it over the period of the UMA indicator, if you look at it over a certain period of years, you're going to see more consistency. So what you'll see is, yes, it's $4,000 a month, but next year, and I know everybody one of the advices was, look, if you make $4,000 a month, you better do it now because in 5 years it's going to be $10,000 a month or $8,000 a month or whatever, because we don't know what the minimum wage is going to be. But what this gives you is if you're planning to move to Mexico, it's 12%. That's what I believe it's 12% is what Gringuísimo, I'm not sure. 12%, I think, is being proposed for next year, but I think there was, I'm not sure, but I think it was 12% this last year too that they gave. So basically what ended up happening is that next year, if you look at the trend of the UMA formula, instead of being 4,000, it's going to be 4,100, unless the exchange rate really goes down or up, whatever. As a matter of fact, you may even see it stay the same. If the exchange rate goes in the U.S.'s favor and it becomes 20-1, you may even see 3,900. So what you're going to see is a more consistent climb, okay? And if a climb, for example, like I said, it's going to all depend on exchange rates. And if we see this implemented, you're going to see it more uniform. You're only going to see $50 difference between consulates or $100. For example, one consulate's going to use 17-1. Another consulate's going to use 18-1. Another consulate's going to use the current rate, or another consulate's going to use whatever it was at the beginning. So what I'm trying to say is that's the kind of good news out of this. It's not the great news like I thought, because my understanding was when they were supposed to go to the UMA formula, even when immigration went to the UMA formula, one of the things that they did was they used the old formula, or the formula that they're using right now. And so that is the error I made. The error that I made was, instead of sitting down and reading the whole thing and studying it and saying, okay, what does this mean? All of that stuff like I normally do, I just got excited. I got online and I said, I'm going to put this out. And I wasn't trying to put it out to beat anybody to the punch. I mean, this news is floating around in Facebook groups. I didn't try to beat anybody to the punch. I was just so excited that and actually when I was getting the live stream ready, I was so excited that that's what I'm going to do my live stream on. And then I got some news. I got some news that people were getting their residency applications denied. Okay. Now, this the second part of my stream when I talked about that, because people, and I'm going to explain to you why they're getting denied, because I caused a little bit of confusion. A lot of people thought, "Oh my God, am I going to lose my card? I only come here 6 months out of the year. Can they get me?" Because I'm going to explain the law, and I actually went over this, which I usually do sometimes too. I check with, well, not my legal counsel, but with people that I know in the legal community, which I didn't check at the time. I confirmed this. I looked it up. I said, you know what? Let me clarify the law, because I did get a lot of comments on the last live stream and a lot of concern. A lot of people thinking, "Oh my God, I'm not going to get it." And as a matter of fact, even my friend, that their daughter, I had even explained, needed to get her change over to permanent residency, and their facilitator told them that, "Oh no, you have to live here." Now, here's the thing. The reason there is some information going out there, and I just took the word for it, and I didn't do my homework. Exactly and as a matter of fact, what I ended up doing, I said that this next live stream that I'm going to do is about over-glorification and fear-mongering. What I actually ended up doing is making both errors. I over-glorified the fact that, "Oh my God, you're going to be able to qualify for residency like with nothing, not with nothing, but with a real low amount." And then I fear-mongered everybody by saying, "You're going to lose your residency." I mean, that's basically the message that was put across. And I communicated it incorrectly. "You're going to lose your residency if you don't live here." I'm going to start this out by saying the only way to lose your, in the Mexican law, the only time that you lose any kind of status, which is not really status because it's citizenship, you can lose citizenship if you live outside of Mexico for more than 5 years. Okay? That is the only time that you actually have to live here you can't be out of the country for more than 5 years. Now, on temporary residency, and this is the actual immigration, ley de migración, on temporary residency, there is nothing in the Mexican law that requires you to live here. And there's not, for permanent or temporary residency, there's nothing in the Mexican law that says that. So that's why everybody says, "Come get your residency." There's nothing in the law. Now, there's nothing in the law that says they can't take it away. Now, immigration can practice discretion in not approving your application. There's a difference between once you have your card, you're good, and once you have your card, you're good. But getting your card could be an issue if you're not going to be living here. And I'm going to tell you, and before everybody gets scared, like, "Oh my God, I'm going to go and apply for my renewal, and I'm going to go and apply for my temporary, and you just ruined my plans." No. I'm going to explain to you the Mexican law as far as, I'm going to kind of go over this, kind of go over the law. In temporary residency, okay, let's jump from, and I'm kind of all over the place, but hang with me here. Okay, so what did I say? They can practice discretion in approving your residency card, but once you have it, they can't take it away. They can, yes, they can, but here's the thing, okay? And I'm going to explain what they can take it away for, okay? And not living here is not one of them, okay? Now, but there is an exception for temporary residency, okay? If you're a temporary resident and you spend too much time, and it's very vague, okay, outside the country, then first, let's go first. You lied on your application, let's say it asks you, have you been convicted of a crime? And you say, no, I've never been convicted of a crime. Yeah, you lied on your application. They can actually take your residency away, either one. The second and temporary residency, there is a thing that says that if you don't live here or you're outside of the country for too long during the period of your temporary residency, immigration can take your temporary residency away. Okay? But there's a catch to all of this, okay? I'm just going over what the thing. The other thing is breaking the rules. For example, in temporary residency, you have to get a work permit. Let's say you're working here, you don't have a work permit, they catch you working, and you violated some type of immigration rules, okay? And the last is you commit a crime, and you do, they arrest you and everything else. Of course, you get deported. Permanent residency is a lot like citizenship. Actually, this was what it was explained to me when they told me that it'd be better that I get permanent residency and get citizenship, because they said once you have it for life. And pretty much the same thing. If you lied on your application, if you break some rules, but like if you're a permanent resident, I don't need to get a work permit. I just have to report. And actually where you live, you do have to report. There are immigration regulations. For example, if you move, you have to report, but that is a fine. Okay, so if they find out you're not living there, they find you, they can fine you. Can they technically remove you? Yeah, kind of, sort of. But there is a catch to all of this. Under the Constitution in Mexico and under the law, you get due process. Okay, they can't just say, let's say you're coming in the airport and you got temporary residency, you've been out of the country for too long, okay, and you get out of the country for too long, and then you come in and they say, oh, you've been out of the country for too long, I'm lifting your card. No, they cannot do that. Okay, if there is questions and you've been out of the country for too long, and if they refer it to their local immigration office, then you have to go through an actual legal process. They have to go through a legal process to remove that from you, if that makes any sense. Okay, same with permanent residency. Or if you're working here, same thing. Like I said, you broke a rule. You're working here. You didn't have a work permit. You get due process. They can't just lift your card, because they can't just come in one day and say, you're working, you don't have a card, you don't have a permit, I'm lifting your card. Okay? So I hope that puts a lot of people at ease, especially those who already have residency. You're not going to get your residency taken away because you don't live here. Because the law, basically, there is nothing in the law that says that you have to live here. In the United States, okay, yes, there is a law that you cannot leave the United States for more than 180 days or you lose your permanent residency. And actually, that is happening a lot now with the new administration. Now, here's another catch to all of this, okay? And I'm going to give a fair warning. This is only my opinion, and it's not a fact. And I haven't received any information. One thing you need to understand, one of the biggest things that everybody needs to understand, is that there is a very big increasing political tension between the United States and Mexico right now over trade. And, there's even been words flying across. The United States is accusing Mexico of supplying them all their drugs. Mexico's kidding back by saying, well, if you didn't have so many users, maybe you wouldn't have some people taking drugs in your country. So the relationship that the United States has with Mexico is getting worse and worse. And the other thing too, over the years, we've seen the immigration process get stricter. And I will tell you one thing that has been told to me, unofficially, whatever you might say, is that these processes are going to start getting stricter. Even the 180 days, even the month. I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon or what, but those are things that Mexico, and here's the other thing that's happening right now. And I don't know if anybody's been tuned into the news here in Mexico, but there's been a lot of mass protests, even up to the point of being kind of violent, of gentrification, people coming. We need to send the gringos home. They're not paying taxes. They're imposing their culture on us. There's whole neighborhoods in Mexico City. They're spray painting walls. Gringos go home. There's a lot of pressure by the public being put on the Mexican government to do something about it because of the large influx of foreigners into, and like they said, there's whole neighborhoods in Mexico City where nobody speaks Spanish. I mean, literally, it's all English, and there's a lot of pressure. I mean, to the point of protests. Actually, somebody just sent me a special report today about the protests in Mexico City and what's behind it. And it, unfortunately has to do with a lot of the Americans and people coming over saying, I'm not going to speak English and you've got to do what I say because I have money and you don't. All of that stuff, it's getting to become really, 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 really tense right now. So there is nothing stopping the Mexican government. If this is the trend, there's nothing stopping the Mexican government from passing a law. But like I said, it's only official when it's official. Don't worry about them passing a law, about you having to live here on your residency. Worry about it when it happens, if it happens at all. That's what I have to say about that. Now, as far as applications, what's going on? What's happening? Why has this caused this? Actually, even some facilitators have told their clients, well, if you're not going to live here, you can't. I&M's going to deny your application. I'm going to tell you what's behind all of that. When I looked into it a little bit, let me just get a drink here. I'm going to mute the microphone. What is behind all of that? And I kind of went into it. I kind of went into it, but I went into it. But what is happening is individuals have been told by their facilitators that, oh no, you're going to get your, well, actually it's changing now, but individuals, they go onto Facebook, they see on Facebook, oh no, the immigration, you just go down, you do your thing. I'm going to get it right away. I'm going to take a week vacation. Okay. And then they take a week vacation. They do their canje. They get to the immigration office. And then the immigration office says, we need to send all our applications to, right now, most offices are sending all their applications to Mexico City for approval. I can give you San Miguel, for example, it's taking 4 to 8 weeks to get the approval. So what they do is you go in, you do your application, and they say, okay, we'll let you know when you get your card, or when to come in to get your card. And then when 4 weeks later, or 5 weeks later, or up to 8 weeks later, you get a call, or your facilitator gets a call, or you get an email, hey, come into your office and get your card. Then you go into the office, they take biometrics, you sign a little electronic thing, and you walk out with your card that day. They print it right then and there. The old system was, unfortunately, this is why people are coming in and taking a week vacation or 2 days or 3 days and flying in one day and flying out the next, is because the old process was the local office could approve your application. They would approve your application. So literally the day you walked, you would go in at 10 in the morning, and at 2 in the afternoon, you walked out with your card. And that's not happening anymore at, I would say, most, if not all, immigration offices. So what's happening is people are coming in, they take a week or maybe even a couple of days, they do their canje, and then they say, oh, come, we'll let you know in 5 weeks, and you can't leave the country. Of course, you can't leave the country. And then they say, oh, but I have to leave the country because my flight reservations are out tomorrow or in a week. Can you do it like in 3 days or 4 days? Or can you give me, and see, here's the thing with the facilitators. The facilitators do all your paperwork, but when it comes to sitting down and talking to the immigration officer, they can't talk for you. Now, I do know some of them have contacts in the immigration office and they can expedite things or maybe translate for you. But most of the time, you sit in front of an immigration agent when you're doing your conhe. And what is happening is the immigration agent is saying, wait a second, what do you mean you have to go home in a week? I thought you're going to come and live here. You're applying for residency. Oh, it's because I'm applying for residency because I'm going to retire next year, but I'm getting it right now because I qualify right now. And then the immigration agent is saying, oh, well, then why don't you wait till next year to apply? Denied. Or some people are saying, oh, well, I'm not going to live here. I'm just getting the residency as my plan B, blah, blah, blah. Residency denied because you're not going to live here. That is it's the same as an immigration officer. Whenever you come in saying you want 180 days and they start talking to you and say, well, you don't need 180 days. You get 7 or you get. So that's where the discretion lies. Doesn't lie in the sense of, oh, we found out you don't live here. Now, here's the thing. And I will say this, and I kind of went over this on a legal standpoint. Address checks. If they check your address and you don't live there, and I know this is a big problem with a lot of people because you can use an Airbnb address because maybe you're not permanently moved. You're going to use whatever address. What'll happen is if they do go and check and you're not there, they can issue. I'm telling you, could they technically say you broke the immigration rules and kick you out? Yes, but not without due process. Remember how I said due process? Let's say they do say, we want to kick you out because you don't live there. And I'm just giving a hypothetical situation to quell the fears, okay, of I'm going to because I don't live at that address, I'm going to get it lifted. First of all, 99% of the times, they'll call you into the immigration office or the next time you go to renew and your address is different. And I've had this happen to people that I know. Wait a second, you changed address, but you never reported INM. That's a fine. And it's a pretty hefty fine. Actually, you can get, so 90, or hey, you know what, the next time you come in, hey, we did an address check, we're going to flag you the next time you come in, or whatever you might say. And 90% of the time, first of all, it's hardly ever enforced. And have I seen anybody have an address check? I've never heard of it happening. Okay. I'm just giving a hypothetical if they actually do, or if they actually, I don't know, create an ICE down here that's going to start going and checking everybody. That's not going to happen, I don't think. But if that were to happen and you don't live here, 99% chance you're going to get a fine. If they say, oh no, you don't live here, we're going to lift your card. They have to set you up for a whole legal process. You have your day in court and you have your opportunity to say, oh, well, I just moved from Puebla to, I don't know, from that Airbnb, and I totally forgot. I mean, that's an excuse. You can go in front and plead your case. So you're not going to, more than likely, and trust me, I don't see the Mexican government going out of their way unless you're doing something wrong here in Mexico and they're trying to find a way to get you. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I was working in that area of federal law enforcement, there are many times that we used the immigration process to get rid of somebody that was a bad person. Okay. Maybe we couldn't get them on the crime, couldn't prosecute them, but we could kick them out of the country. Okay. So, but they still had a legal process, even in the United States. So I want to quell this fear. And I think I got a little bit opinionated in my last live stream, like, you're screwed if you're not going to live here. Okay. Which is not true. And I'll own up to it. I'm not here to, like I said, I'm not here to win a popularity contest. I'm not here to prove that I'm right. I'm here to get you the information that you need. So I hope this clears everything up. I'll go into questions right now. I do know some people have made some comments, and we'll go over that. But I hope this clears everything up, because I do know that all of a sudden, and here's the problem with my live, that when I did it this last week, the next thing you know, my live's going to be going Well, I took it down. That's why. My live's going to be going viral. You're going to get the people saying, nah, you guys that don't live here, you're screwed. And the other ones are going to be saying, oh my God, we're on Social Security. We're going to be able to, I mean, what I mean by Social Security is we're on the minimum Social Security. We're going to be able to qualify. And the next thing, that's how disinformation gets out. Okay. And that's why I'm correcting this information. And that's why I always say, and I use this all the time, and I don't know why I harp on it, but there was a YouTuber that came out on Tangerine Travels that said, all you have to do is be retired. You don't need to show financial solvency. All you need to do is show your Social Security check for permanent residency on top of it all. And he even had a lawyer come on. And then even Tangerine Travels was like, well, a lawyer said. Well, the lawyer happens to be not a very, very shady character. I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to attack anybody's reputation, but I'm just going to say it's shady. And what happened? The next thing you knew, it was all over Facebook groups. There was a YouTuber out of Ajijic that told people to walk in with the Mexican law. I mean, it got out of hand, and I don't want this to get out of hand here. I want it to be the accurate information, and I think it actually started to get out there. And actually, I saw Spencer McMullen, who's an attorney. He's actually very, very famous attorney, was trying to say, hey, everybody hold on. He actually posted it in San Miguel. Hold on to your pants. This UMA thing isn't as great as everybody thinks it is. But I think that's because word starts getting around, just like what I did, or maybe even I was the cause of it. Word gets around that, oh, they're using the UMA. We're good. Well, you need to read the whole thing, just like I should have read the whole thing. And this is a lesson, not just for me. And I have had a lot of, I'm not going to make up excuses for doing this. Like I said, I don't apologize for anything I do. I just make it right if it's wrong. That's the bottom line. So let's go into everything here. This is breaking fluid information. There's never reason to apologize. This is why I love it. Get your job, no bull info. Thanks, Blaine. Like I said, it's but I usually take a little bit more time to make sure everything's set a little bit more active. And I want to note too, I've been on these live streams and I've been corrected, and I have had the fortunate opportunity of having a lot of people on these live streams that have a lot of knowledge, and maybe even more knowledge than me. I'm not an expert. I don't try to claim to know more than anybody else. If someone knows more than me, or somebody knows something that I don't know, then I am all for it, because this helps you. I'm not in it for me. I'm in it for you. We'll always support you. Lance, Mexico needs to start here. Tourist visas 30 days. No temp residency for anyone under 50 unless sponsored by established Mexican business colleague. Well, the only thing I'll say, Lance, I mean, I know it's your opinion, but I mean, we can't tell the Mexican government what to do. I will say one thing, and I always promote moving to Mexico because this has been the best thing that ever happened to me. What I will tell everybody, and I'm not here to tell people how to get around the rules or how to make a hack. I always say the best thing to do is follow the rules. I just lay the groundwork. But the one thing that I will tell you is that Mexico, even with relations and all of those things, like I even told you, could they pass a law making residency that you live here? Yes, they could. Could they pass a law that tourist visas are 30 days? Yes, they could. Could they pass no temporary, just like what you're saying, Lance? Yes, they can. But I don't see Mexico. Mexico has always been a very neutral country. Mexico has always been a welcoming country. I will tell you one thing right now. The Mexican government, now they will look out for their own people first. That's why I was saying there's a lot of protests and everything else. But at the same time, they're very welcoming. As a matter of fact, if you look at past history, they have actually taken in refugees. They have actually taken in political political asylum type of issues. They've accepted individuals that weren't accepted by other countries. They've always been considered themselves as a neutral country. So really disappointed about giving out. I was very excited, and now I am very frustrated. Yeah, Steve, I'm sorry that I got you excited, and that's why I wanted to come on today, not because I just found out yesterday and break the news. Like I said, I'm very sorry that I got your hopes up there. Use formula for retirees' pensions and Social Security income or solvency. The formula, Lance, they determine whether, and I don't know if this is what you're asking. They either go by monthly income or what you have in your savings. And I am under the understanding that, and this will vary. A lot of consulates will take your 401k. So, like I said, this thing of having $200,000 in the bank, they do accept. Now, on some, it's your 401k, but you have to be taking distributions, all of that stuff. In other words, you can't say, I have a 401k with $1 million, but I'm 40 years old and I'm not going to retire till I'm 60. And then they're going to say, well, that 401k you can't touch until you're whatever age. So come back then when you, and I've even known, but at the same time, I've known people to say, this is my savings account, and then give them the 401k and it's okay. But that's from consulate to consulate. And yeah, Mexico will crack down. It's coming. The writing's on the wall. And actually, Lance, I'll be totally honest with you. I see the writing on the wall too. And I see a lot of pressure being put on by the Mexican people. The thing that I think that everybody needs to realize, because I don't want to leave people with the taste that, oh, the Mexican people hate Americans because they're flowing into Mexico. And it is happening. I'm going to tell you right now, there's even been studies done that there's more American, and I know I'm going to get a bunch of comments, and I'll probably delete them because, you know what? Like I said, I'm here to help, not to get into political argument. But there's more Americans coming south than there are people migrating north, actually. They've done studies. And it's not that the Mexican, I'm going to tell you right now, I have plenty of Canadian, Mexican, American, Australian, New Zealand friends that they're welcome here with open arms here in San Miguel. I think a lot of times too, there's a lot of misconceptions. I think a lot of the political tensions is in places like Mexico City, where a lot of digital nomads come. Most of the Mexican people appreciate, love, are friendly. They'll bring you into their family of the people that live here, with the exception of a couple of people, because I know some people who are just impossible. I mean, why isn't this like the United States? And God forbid. And I'm going to yell at everybody and treat everybody like dirt. I've seen it. I hate to say it, but I've seen it. Those, I don't think the Mexican people like you. But most, I will tell you, I've had stories of how welcoming and great people are. They accept you in the community, okay? But the problem is we've had a big influx of digital nomads and people that just come in here. They've taken over whole neighborhoods. As a matter of fact, not even, and then you have the actual Mexican businessmen that are trying to make money off of them. It's driving the, and I know I've kind of took different sides on this, but it's driving the rent up for the Mexican people. But we're not talking about just the local people, the poor people. It's driving the rent up for professionals, people that should be living in those neighborhoods, and they can't afford to live there. Then you have them coming in on tourist visas for 180 days, not bothering to get any kind of residency. And I know there's a lot of arguments. I'm not going to get into we support the economy because we spend money, or all the money that's being spent No, I don't want to get into that. But those are the people that are really ruining it for the rest of us, to be honest with you. And I think they will get, they will start cracking down. And I see it happening. It's been happening over years now, slowly but surely. I said this in my last stream. Mexico was kind of like the wild, everybody sees it as the wild west. It was a place, if you looked at the old movies, I'm going to run to Mexico, like the outlaw was going to run to Mexico. And it was like, oh, there's no rules there. They're never going to find me. Those things, that doesn't exist anymore. Or even up to 10 years ago or 7 years ago when I moved here, 8 years ago, Mexico doesn't care. Don't worry. You can stay here. You can overstay your visa. No, those things don't exist anymore. And it's been changing over the years. You get 180 days automatically. Don't worry. Those things are changing. And even with the automatic 180 days that is implemented right now, it's a little bit different of a system than just rubber stamp every single time. Yeah, Green, don't feel bad about the number. I just saw a video from a few days ago where Maria. Yeah, and I think the problem, Gringuissimo, and I'll stand up for Mariana on that one. And I didn't see the video, but I think she probably did the same thing as me, thinking UMA, yay, and maybe she didn't read the formula. I'm not aware. I mean, if she did do that, that's probably she did the same thing as me. And I don't fault her for that because she's the one that came back and told me, hey, by the way, I think your formula is wrong. And actually, she was very nice about it. She's not trying to correct me I mean, we get along very well. But she was, actually, I really appreciate that she did that. Yeah, actually, Pablo, they are in Condesa and Roma. I wouldn't call them mass protests. Yes, I know that they're not mass protests as far as like nationwide, and they are in two different neighborhoods. I will agree with you. The problem is it's getting national attention. It's not the size of the protest, and yeah, it might have been 100 people and looked like 1,000, and everything else, like I've seen happen before. But the problem is it's gaining national attention. So it's not a matter of how big it was or how massive it was. It's the perception, okay? And the national perception, I'm going to tell you right now, I was in Monterrey when all of this, I've been in Monterrey back and forth. So I've talked to people in Monterrey, Mexico, hundreds and hundreds of miles away from Mexico City. And I've heard comments that pinche gringos, they're coming in and they're taking over and blah, 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 blah. So it's changed the public perception. So that's one thing that people don't understand about protests. And it's not necessarily the protest. It could be the media that does it. But the problem when public perception gets changed like that, then you have a problem because it becomes a political issue. So. Yeah, in LA, there are whole neighborhoods where they don't speak it. Yeah, I understand, but the thing is, Pablo, that like I said, and looks staged to me, it's not staged, it's real but small. Yeah, and actually, Pablo, I'm going to tell you right now. Someone says it looks staged to me, and then Pablo says it's not staged, it's real, but it's small. Yes, it was, and actually, I'm going to tell you right. I've already seen this happening. Probably, I don't know how many years ago, people started when those neighborhoods, before the protests become national news, people have been doing this all. They've been putting signs up, gringos go home, for years now. I want to say a couple of years ago is when I first saw it. They've been doing reports for several years now. The problem is it's getting... Yeah, and those protesters never lived and never will. It's for show. Yes, I understand that. But like I said, the problem is the public perception. I'm not here to defend the Mexican people. I'm not here to defend the people that live in Condesa or live in. What I'm here to tell you is it's causing a stir in the political atmosphere here in Mexico. And it's causing a stir. And the thing that you need to understand about the new president, I want to make something clear about the last president and the new president. The new president believes a lot in social justice, okay? Whether it's justice or not, social justice or not, but she believes in social justice. So you get a bunch of people that look poor and say, we can't even live here no more, protesting and whatever. Even if they don't live there, you have a bunch of people, this is not socially justified and blah, blah, blah. You have an administration that will listen to this, okay, this narrative. And unfortunately, I'm not here to talk about politics, but that's what you, and I haven't seen mass in San Miguel. Yeah, and that's the problem, Pablo. You haven't seen protests in Najijic, San Miguel, or Puerto Vallarta. But the problem is the ones that are going on in Mexico City are affecting all of those areas now. And yeah, digital nomads are beginning to spoil it. And really, to be honest with you, and I'll put this back to Lance and Pablo. Honestly, Condesa, Roma, all of those areas, yes, they're saturated with foreigners, but most of them are there on 180-day FMMs. They're not there. Yeah, you have residents probably, and there's people, most digital nomads that are coming to Mexico. Yeah, I actually went, I'll tell you what, I'll give you an example. I went to Mexico City about a month ago, and I started asking the taxi driver, how much, we went through Condesa, we went through Roma, Condesa, what's the other one? Polanco was the one. I actually asked him, Polanco, how much is rent here in Polanco? And he goes, no, man, it's really expensive. And I'm like, well, what's expensive? Because when you say expensive in Mexico, expensive could mean a lot lower than what we call expensive in our country, right? He said, well, about the equivalent of, I think it was 40,000 or 50,000 pesos for a one little itty-bitty bedroom apartment. That translates into about $2,000. I know in South Texas, there's apartments, probably not as small and as little. There's people paying $1,500 to $2,000 a month in McAllen, Texas. Okay, but let's say you're a digital nomad coming from New York. That same apartment in New York is going to cost $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. Do you think that someone that's only going to pay $2,000 isn't going to find that a steal? And what happens? Well, we call them profesionistas here in Mexico. The professionals who are used to paying $1,000 now cannot afford, because their salary is not as high, cannot afford to live there. So it is happening. That's how you have that, and that's how gentrification works. Now, I've always talked about gentrification in the fact that gentrification happens in the United States. And people say, no, it doesn't. Yes, it does. People move from California to Austin, Texas. I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We saw a big influx of people from California that moved there because they couldn't afford to live in California. So this is not something new. It's just the difference is across borders. They gave me an app. Yeah, actually, I'll tell you what, Lance, they're getting a lot more computerized and everything else. Actually, they started taking credit cards a while back, but for where they were at, not too long ago. Yeah, Gringuissimo. Here, let me clarify this, and please, if you have questions, let me clarify. Sorry, I was muted. Thank you for letting me know. I'm sorry. Let me go back to your question on Gringisimo. You and I'm like I said. Thank you for letting me know I was muted. I went to go get a drink of water. I'll go back and I'll try to take that out. But Gringisimo, you had asked how long is it that you about staying. What I explained while I was muted, and I'm going to re-explain it in case I wasn't muted, is that what I'm going to explain is that the not living here, there's nothing in the Mexican law that says you have to live here. Now, in the Mexican law, they say there is a base, these are the following bases for removal. Okay. In temporary residency, it says that you've been gone too long. But like I said, let's say you were out of town because you were gone. Let's say they say you were gone too long. You get to go and plead your case. You get due process. They can't remove you without they can't just take your card. And let's say you had to go because a family member got sick and you have all the proof that the family member, then you can say, hey, my family member got sick. That's why I was gone this amount of time. Oh, okay. Not a problem. Do you see where I'm coming from? And number two, I've never seen it being done, okay, for being gone too long. And it's only for temporary residency. So once you get permanent residency, it's almost like being a citizen, actually, other than you not being able to vote or hold public office or be a cop. Actually, you can't be a cop. That is where there's nothing, but there is, but it's never used. I'm telling you right now, I've never seen it used, but that can be a basis. But at the same time, even though it can be a basis, okay, on temporary residency, even though it could be a basis, and I'm not saying that it won't happen and more people won't get set up or whatever, you do get due process. That's the most important part. And I'm going to tell you something about due process. Due process means setting you up, paperwork, justifications of why, blah, 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 arguments, blah. And I'm going to tell you right now, the government is not going to remove you unless it's worth removing you, if that makes any sense. Because they're going to spend a lot of time and effort in removing a person. They're not going to remove a person just because they don't like the way you look, if that makes sense. Now, if you're a bad guy and you're a drug trafficker and helping or laundering money for the drug cartels, and they have some proof, and the only way they can get you out of the country is because you've been living outside the country, then maybe they'll set you up for deportation. I don't know, but that's what I want to make sure that you know. Lance, everyone, when all the Mexican are following, that will change. Yeah, it might change. It might. Okay. Let me see. Jesse, I live in Raleigh and I am basically gentrified out of here. Exactly. That's what I said. It works in the United States. Gentrification is not something that's just Mexico or Colombia. It's in your own country. And this happens in Mexico too. I'm not talking about foreigners coming here. I'm even talking about for example, Mexico City. I've seen gentrification of Querétaro by Mexicans from Mexico City because of whatever reasons, the traffic, they can move their business there. So gentrification takes a lot of different, how would you say, forms. So we can't put a nasty tone to gentrification because it happens everywhere. It's just how you see it. 300K for a 1,600 square foot house. I'd like to see them pay that in California. That happened to us when I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico years ago. So, Yeah, you saw a 3-bedroom in Condesa for $330K. $30K is about $1,500 a month. Like I said, who wouldn't take it if they could go live remote work? So yeah, Anna, that's what I was talking about. And actually, I went into it a little bit earlier. They weren't getting approved because they obviously kind of admitted that they weren't living there. And also, I think, Ringisma, I was answering your other question about the famous facilitator, and I was muted. The famous facilitator, and I'm going to tell you right now, she's very good at what she does. She has a lot of contacts with immigration. I do know she probably gets personal feedback from the INM people. Probably when she was talking about 90%, is she's talking about those people that when they ask you questions, when you're going through the interview, because she's not sitting there with you. She's not there to coach you to tell you what to say. So if they're good enough at telling you, well, where are you going to live? I don't know. I'm going to live in San Antonio. Okay, well, have you found a place? No, not yet. Well, when do you plan on coming back to find a place? In about 3 years when I retire. Well, you know what? Or maybe they're going to ask you questions of, okay, when you're going to find a place, okay, or are you gonna live here most of the time, or do you have a house back in the United States? Oh, I have a house back in the United States. I only plan to come here on vacation. And I'm not kidding you. People say this, okay? Because in their mind, they think, oh, no, that I can get it real easy and Mexico doesn't care and they're going to give it to me. And that's a problem with this over-glorification, if that makes any sense. So I think that's where she got the 90%. Probably she also got the 90% from immigration officials saying that, yeah, whenever we interview, we try to look at how long they're going to live here. And if they don't, doesn't look like they're going to live here, then we practice our discretion. But you got to remember, before I leave this live, is just remember that, I'm sorry, before I leave this live, just remember that discretion comes when you're applying. Discretion doesn't come to lift your card after you have your card. And I know what the solution right now is. Most, I guess, and I'm not going to tell you that this is a hack or whatever, because I know that Mariana did say that it's because a lot of the facilitators don't know how to manage the system. The facilitators that do know how to manage the system, and I'm not saying that they're breaking the rules, they're basically going to tell you, hey, just tell them you're going to live here. Don't admit that you're going to live back home. Just don't say nothing. Just get your card and stay here for 5 weeks. So, and wait, just stay here. And that is how most facilitators are getting around that. Now, if the one in San Miguel decides that, hey, I want to be on the up and up and I'm not going to lie to the INM people and all that, well, then I don't know what to tell you. That's her decision. And I'm not putting her up on a pedestal and I'm not criticizing her for doing that. You just have to understand that that is something that's going on right now. Will that turn into changing the law? Maybe. I don't know. Can I see it happening? Yeah, I could see it happening because of the political tones and the political pressure. And like I was telling Pablo, is that, yeah, there's small protests and yeah, they don't even live there. The people that they get a bunch of poor people there to say we can't even live in our own neighborhoods. And, I understand that. But you need to understand, like I said, this administration is really into social justice, equality, and I'm just giving you a political scenario in my head. I don't speak for the president of Mexico or anything else like that, but think about it. Oh, my poor citizens are being forced out of their neighborhoods. Okay? Just keep that in your head for a little bit. So will it change? I think a lot of things will change. But what will happen, we don't know. And like I said, I wouldn't worry about it. If you already have your card, you're not going to get, and even if they were to do an address check, because technically you didn't report your address and you broke the rules, there's 50 million excuses of why you didn't change your address, other than that you don't live there. But I'm just saying, they already know that people forget. And most people that show up to renew and have a different address, they charge you a fine. So, 90%. Oh, when you mentioned how many get their card, yeah, 90% get their card. Probably, when I mentioned 90, I was referring to the time to get the card. 90% of the time, it comes the same day, not being sent to. Okay, well, all I know is that there are some getting. The problem, here's the deal. Maybe 90% aren't going. There was one point when they were all going. Probably they're reducing that. Probably she's more correct than I am because she does it every day. But probably there's, I don't know, certain cases that go up to Mexico City. The other thing that you need to understand too is that, like I said, you get interviewed. So, okay, you get interviewed and then you're in the middle of interviewing and saying, or maybe even when they say, you know what, I don't know, this guy doesn't sound like he's going to live here. You know what, let's send it up to Mexico City for further review. I don't know why they're sending some up to Mexico City and not others. But most people walk out the same day. But the problem is, the biggest problem is that when a facilitator tells you you're going to walk out with the same day, I make reservations, and this is what's probably happening. In a couple of the cases that I know of, is that these people came in thinking I'm going to get it. I'm going to be part of the 90%. It's the same as a 180-day visa, where everybody's like, you're going to automatically get it, and you turn out to be the 1% that don't, or the 10% that don't. And that's the problem. What happens is people are becoming the 10% that it needs to be sent up to Mexico City. And then they say, but I have to go home. And then they're getting their stuff denied. Hola from Port Marcos. Yeah, you're not going to have any issues. And even if they pass a law, and I also want to make everybody clear, even if they were to pass a law, there wouldn't need to be a whole plan on how to enforce it, to be honest with you. Now, there are ways of enforcing it, don't get me wrong. But you need to understand that when any body passes a law, unless you're just crazy about, we just want to do this, there's a whole system of how are we going to implement this, how are we going to do it, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes laws don't get passed, not even passed, don't even get introduced, because the enforcement might be too expensive, might not be a way to enforce it. Sometimes they just say, okay, but we want to pass it anyway. So it's very hard to tell what's going to happen. I will tell you one thing right now. If tensions get worse, and I'm not talking about the protests, but if relations get worse, well, you might see some immigration control. You're already seeing it in the United States towards Mexico and other countries. I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but even if they're not justified in doing it or whatever, you've got to remember there's repercussions for when a country does something to another country or their citizens abroad or whatever. Then there's what we call reciprocity. I can give you one quick example before I leave. When we were in Brazil, when I was in Brazil, CBP, the United States Customs and Border Protection, decided that they were going to start. They have the fingerprint machines. Whenever you enter the United States, you put your finger on the fingerprint machine. And the Brazilians That's one of the countries you need a visa to come in. The Brazilians started entering into the country, started complaining because they're taking our fingerprints. And the Brazilian government, out of reciprocity, said, you know what? Then fine. Every single U.S. citizen that comes into Brazil will be fingerprinted. At that time, they didn't have automated fingerprinting systems. They were literally fingerprinting people manually with ink. And then they had fingerprint cards. They had whole warehouses full of fingerprint cards. And all they did was they fingerprinted for the sake of reciprocity. You fingerprint us, we fingerprint you. So just keep that in mind when we see a lot of this changing. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I just see a political environment, both on a local thing, and like I said, we just need to see what happens. Gringuissimo, she's probably trying to talk me down from worrying about my renewal. Actually, Gringuissimo, if you're renewing, I'm not her. I don't know the INM down here, but probably about 90% because of renewals, you already have your information. I'm thinking, to be honest with you, that everything that's going up to Mexico City right now are the new applications. To be honest with you, that's what I think. Probably that's why she's telling you don't worry. And I wouldn't worry neither. I wouldn't stress it out. You should be fine. And I don't think, and I hate to say it, and I'm not putting anybody down, please, but I think it was just people stupid enough to say, I'm not going to be living here. I'm not saying that you lie and say, I'm going to live here. But at the same time, I'm not saying, what I'm trying to say is people that admitted that they're not going to live here. They're only getting it for this, whatever reason, plan B, blah, 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 blah. And then, well, I mean, you're an immigration official. You're going to say, okay, well, thank you for admitting this to me. I don't need to give you residency. Okay. I don't know. Like I said, I don't like to predict what they think or what they thought, what they're asking. I don't know because I'm not there, but you'll probably more than likely be just fine on your renewal. And actually on your renewal, to be honest with you, I think they're going to take more of an attitude, and I'm just thinking as like an immigration officer would think. Well, they've already been living here for a year or 2 years or whatever, or their 2 years is up, I'm renewing for the other 2 years, or their 1 year is up, they can renew for their 3. When they're doing your renewal, they're like, well, they've already lived here. Maybe they may even have the attitude that you already live here. Why am I going to be asking you all those questions? The way I look at it, we're all getting an opportunity to see what it is like to be treated the way others are in the United States. Well, like I said, there are consequences for that. Is Mexico fighting back, and are the consequences grave? Not at this point, to be honest with you. And actually, the other thing about the president that I will say, she's very politically correct, she's a very eloquent person, very smart. Maybe some people might not agree with me because of her political views, but she's a very smart and sharp person. And so we'll have to see what happens. She's not emotional in the sense that, oh, USA, we're going to strike back and we're going to screw you over. And no, she's not like the other side. So she's very calculated in what she does. And that can be a good thing, and that can be a bad thing too. A good thing in the sense that maybe just keep her cool, and we'll hit you where it hurts. And it's probably, trust me, not letting Americans have residency is not where it's going to hurt the United States. Most people, actually, I've even predicted, this is just a personal prediction, that there might even be something like the regularization program, depending on how bad things, I'm not going to say how bad, depending on how things get in the United States, There may even be a new regularization program, but not regularization. It may be an amnesty program. We'll have to see. Amnesty is based on political persecution. Maybe it'll get to the point where I hate to say this, but right now it's one party against the other. And maybe at one point, if you're a Democrat, you get politically persecuted and you actually have a valid case for immunity. Right now, no, but maybe later. Not asylum, not immunity. I'm sorry, asylum. You might start seeing programs opening up for asylum. And there is one YouTuber that got approved for it. But that was a bogus thing, to be honest with you. I hate to say it, but it was. He lives in Querétaro. I don't know if he's still, and then he gets asylum and breaks the rules. He tries to become a political activist here, which you cannot do if you have residency here. Well, and I'm not going to get involved in what the political things are. And like I said, let's worry about it when it happens. But at this point, it's not happening. So everybody can calm down. If you're already a resident here, don't have to worry about it. And hopefully I cleared everything up. Thank you for joining me on this emergency live stream. If you watched me and you watched all the way to the end, thank you. Also, if you get a little bit of the mute, and please just fast forward until you can hear my voice again. I'll try to take that portion out. I can actually edit, post on the YouTube, and I'll try to take the part that I was muted. So thank you guys for joining me. I'm just looking at the comments here. Thank you for joining me. And like I said, most importantly, stay safe. And when I say stay informed, get all the information, double check. Well, you know what? Someone double checked me, because when Mariana get a hold of me, it's because someone sent her the video. Okay. And she said, "Oh shoot, Ernie did a boo-boo. Let me send him a message." And I thank her for it. I'd like to even say thank you, Mexico Relocation Guide, for looking after me that I got it wrong. And that's one of the things that I love about this community. When I get things wrong or I'm not right, then you know what? If I'm not right, make sure that you correct me, because we want to get the most accurate information. We want to have the most accurate information that we can get for people that want to move, want to travel, and want to live here. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for being such a great community. Also, thank you for being understanding. I really appreciate that. The other thing that I do want to note is when my last live stream, some people started getting into this back and forth, and I even had, I had a comment said I wouldn't live in that S-hole for $1 million. I wouldn't live in this S-hole for $1 million. And I'm like, that means you already live there? But you're already saying you wouldn't live in there for $1 million? Or you mean that S-hole? Bottom line, you want to do that, you're going to get banned from the channel. I appreciate free speech and everything else, but I'm not here to, I censor my stuff. Not because I'm wrong or someone's wrong. I censor it for being rude, obnoxious, political, or if you just want to be mean. We're not here to be mean. We're here to be great to each other and help each other out the best we can. Thank you. And like I say again, stay safe and stay informed. And until next time, we'll see you soon.